welcome back, everyone, to another great episode of The Human Role. So today we are going to get into a very extensive topic when we talk about what makes the workplace thrive, but also struggle, just depending on your leadership team that is in place. So we have another great guest today, as I mentioned in the last episode, a close colleague of mine, Craig Belanger. Craig is an SVP of Business Services Group Leader and Commercial Lines and Executive Risk at Crum Forster, right? So talk about someone who has a proven track record and knows what he's doing in the leadership space. So Craig, thank you so very much for being on today. Really excited to have you and to get into this very important topic. But if you can just take some time to give my network a little bit of your background, how you even got into this intensive leadership role. I know that there are already some people in our networks that are well-versed on your experience, but for those of you who have not heard of Craig, I'd love for him just to kind of give some of his expertise.
Sure. Thank you for the introduction. I'm excited to be here today. Like Tiana said, my name is Craig Belanger. I lead the commercial and executive division's business services capabilities at Crum Forster. Crum Forster is a 200-year-old company that's part of the Fairfax umbrella of companies, and we operate in the commercial property and casualty space primarily. I am a technology and operations leader. I spent most of my career in the technology space. And about 8 years ago, we had a large organizational restructure and I assumed this role. It has been definitely not a straight line path. There have been lots of ups and downs, like you said, but I love what I do. I consider myself to be a very culture and people first leader. And I work with an incredible, inspiring group of leaders that I'm responsible for supporting. I have wonderful peers, and certainly the leaders that I report to are amazing culture first and people first leaders. So we're really excited about what we do as a culture. I'm really excited about what I do as a leader. And I look forward to our chat today.
Yes, thank you so much for that introduction. Look, I've heard great things about Craig's company. Great person, great colleague to have you guys. So please be sure to reach out to him if you have any questions on the side after our discussion today when it comes to leadership. But let's get into it. Let's start and take a deep dive in what you consider effective leadership, like what that means to you, Craig, especially in today's workplace environment, because we're in some unprecedented times right now.
We are definitely in unprecedented times. I think that effective leadership to me is being able to balance sort of the short-term demands of the organization so that we can deliver on our goals and, make the money that's required to operate the organization and for the organization to grow. And at the same time, doing the work to ensure that the organization will endure, all the work that's required to mature and stabilize and set an innovation culture that will carry us into the future. Like I said earlier, we celebrated our 200-year anniversary sort of in the middle of COVID, which was super interesting. So there's, I think, lots of pressure on leaders to evolve so that we can endure. And I think a huge component of that is leadership development, hiring the right leaders, growing the right leaders, supporting those hires so that we're supporting our teams, but also we're supporting our businesses for the long term.
Yes, very true there. I think having the right leaders in place is always critical. And, sometimes you get it right, sometimes you don't. But I think it seems like your company lasting as long as it has, right? You figured out how to make things work and continue to, build and lead your team in a proper way. And okay, so let's get into we're hybrid, we're remote, we're in office. We've got a lot of different environments, right, going on in businesses, as you mentioned, as you all celebrated your 200-year anniversary, right, in the midst of COVID. We were definitely experiencing something different than we had ever before. So how do you build your trust across your teams and departments, especially when you are throwing in now hybrid environments or potentially employees that actually work fully remote?
At the enterprise level, Crum Forster is a largely remote company. The majority of our team members are remote. We have a segment that are hybrid and a very, very small segment of that team that are actually full-time in office. We believe that to be a strategic differentiator for us. Lots of people initially learn about us because they're interested in our culture. We have both a really successful top-down and bottom-up culture. So our most senior executives are very committed to that sort of remote view of work. So it's a reality that we have to work in. I think that there are several layers to it. At the enterprise level, we have a lot of programs that are in place to make sure that our team members are supported and that they feel connected to the organization. That would be just our benefit strategies. It would be how we handle our belonging practice. Like we have a really thriving employee resource group practice that helps to sort of stitch people together across geographies and across divisions. And, we have a very dedicated group of professionals in those groups that are doing the work every day to build the long-term sort of enduring trust-based organization. At the divisional level, we have amazing commitment as well. I think every division has a different approach to how it does this. Our division operates largely in a decentralized way at all. We have a great people leadership team divisionally that does a lot of the work to make sure that we are doing, I would say, the structural things related to building trust, like around how we ensure we are paying people right, how we ensure our benefits are administered appropriately, and how we build and administer our policies that help people understand our commitment to their work-life balance. And then I would say at the team level, our leaders spend a lot of time on transparency and communication. We use a tool, I don't want to shout out any tools here, but we use a pulse survey tool that allows us to keep an ongoing anonymous feedback loop with all of our team members. And we take that very seriously. And part of our leaders' responsibility is to monitor sentiment and the comments in that and have anonymous, well, it's not anonymous for our leaders, it's anonymous for people who are speaking to us, conversations about things that are working, that things are not working. And then we have an open door policy where I think anybody who has concerns about their specific work or how they fit in the organization can really talk to anybody. Our CEO sends out an email every Friday where he shares with the group what he's thinking about that week. And a lot of our team members write back and he writes them back, which I think is unheard of in an organization of our size. And so that helps to build trust, I think, across all of the levels of the organization. We have very similar cadences in our group. So a very long answer to a short question, I would say probably a lot of transparency and a lot of communication.
Yes.
Hey, it's Bob Pulver, host of You Podcast. Human-centric AI, AI-driven transformation, hiring for skills and potential, dynamic workforce ecosystems, responsible innovation. These are some of the themes my expert guests and I chat about, and we certainly geek out on the details. Nothing too technical. I hope you check it out.
So I think I loved how you even mentioned payroll. So as we talk about HR leadership and then also on the payroll podcast, I just had some guests on where their whole career is focused around payroll. We just talked about the importance of that, right? So a lot of times people don't realize until something unfortunately happens on payday, right? How important that is. But the next critical point is really your open door policy, right? Even to hear that your CEO is sending out notes and emails to employees and actually responding, and it's not a bot or it's not an assistant, that full transparency part is very critical. And I think there are a lot of companies that are missing that. And sometimes you don't realize, like when you're at a company, you don't realize how important that was to you until you go somewhere. So it's like you don't really know what you have until you don't have it anymore. So I really want to highlight that to everyone out there, right? If you're in a leadership role and you're thinking about or needing to do something and trying to figure out what to do, that can go a very long way. I think it's really important to the culture as a whole.
Our unique approach to how we do people development and people management, I think, is part of the secret sauce of what we do. I think if you go and look at Crum Forster's social feeds, if you go and look at our survey results, you'll see that there's a deep commitment to that. It's not performative. And it's because we have really dedicated leaders in all of our functional groups, but we also have a really dedicated people group at the corporate level and at the divisional level that partner with our businesses, right? So we don't have, I would say, that traditional relationship that some people have when they think of human resources, and I think some of our greatest partners, and for me as a leader, is all of those groups. Payroll is super important. At the end of the day, everybody is working because they feel very committed to the work of their organization. Also, they want to get paid, and I think Like I said, I spend a lot of time in technical leadership, and I think payroll has a relationship similar to maybe cybersecurity or maybe to core infrastructure. When it's working, nobody thinks about it. But when it's not working, everybody really thinks about it and really appreciates it. So pick up the phone today and call your payroll professional or your cybersecurity professional or your core infrastructure professional and say, thanks for keeping the lights on. Especially in Georgia, because it's so hot right now. I really appreciate the lights.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Giving Craig a crown right now, right? He definitely, it is very important. And it's sometimes the loss department, of course, if you never have issues until, something occurs. So yes. Okay. Great stuff there. Okay. So Craig, definitely, since you were a leader during what we just spoke about as far as unprecedented times during COVID, how do you say you learned about how to lead in those uncertain times, right? To my knowledge, to people I know, we had never experienced that before. So was there anything heavy that you learned during that time that you can share with us today?
We're an insurance company, right? And so at the end of the day, our business is risk. And so we spend a fair amount of time thinking about all the things that can go wrong. We are sometimes glass half full people, sometimes glass half empty people. And our teams have done a lot of work planning for things that could go wrong. We think about a lot of fringe scenarios, that probably won't happen, but if they do happen, are really meaningful to our business. And so we had done a lot of planning work around these types of things. We'd never had to execute these plans. I think our leaders did a wonderful job of getting everybody home, making sure that the business was stable, but also making sure that our people had what they needed. And I think that's a result of planning. Did we execute exactly our plans? Absolutely not. Like nobody had a COVID-19 plan on the shelf, but going through the practice of planning has your people thinking about those things in a certain way and makes them agile and nimble and adaptable in a certain way. And I think that that's what allowed us to react and just reinforce that way of working was the way we should be working. We use this cycle from some people say it's the Toyota production system. Some people call it lean, but the plan, do, check, act cycle. So all of our teams have monthly retrospectives where they're looking at their work, looking at their way of working and figuring out how to evolve. And so they also have cadences for check-in every day. They have monthly planning cycles. So all of those cadences allowed us to keep people very closely stitched together, which helped us to react much more quickly. We were never a remote organization. I think that there were many people who you would speak to who would say that would never work for us. But fast forward, we are definitely a remote organization. And so that cultural evolution, which retrospectively was huge, at the time, we were really just putting one foot in front of the other and learning from every step. And so that level of continuous improvement coupled with intent-based leadership, this is what we need to do versus this is how we're going to do it, really unlocked a lot in our teams, because organizations that are dependent on sort of like these hub and spoke models or very like top-down directional sort of crisis management, those kinds of heroics don't scale. And so something breaks in the process. And so planning as a practice and constant inspection and adaptation.
Yeah, good stuff. And look, just one foot forward and continuing to go. I think it's also really key. And I love how you also pointed out the hybrid or fully remote now aspect, because I could have never imagined not having to go into the office and be around people. And so, of course, COVID was, an unfortunate, terrible thing. But also at the same time, I think it showed us a new way of life. And so if there was any, good to come of it, it showed us that we could be flexible and provide people with, some leniency with their specific needs. And I think that says enough for itself.
I agree.
All righty. So let's take it back here. I like to get some advice for my network too. So if you could go back and really mentor your younger self at the start of your leadership journey or career, what would you tell yourself now, in hindsight?
So I have a degree in vocal performance from the Easton School of Music. So to say that I would land up in insurance and an operations and technology role, much less an operations technology and leadership role, was nowhere in any of my cards. So I would say number one, advice that I would give my younger self would to not be so committed to one view of the future. I got into everything that I do by taking an outbound telemarketing job at a big data company because I was tired of waiting tables. And I did that during school and I hated it. I figured out that I am painfully shy, like in real life, although this is real life. And talking to so many strangers I was not successful. I took rejection very quickly and moved on. And I had very high contact rates, but very low sales. And I looked for every opportunity to get off of the phone and get to something else. And that's really when I sort of created my first tech opportunity, and sort of everything else has been from there, saying yes to a lot of things, saying yes to the things that sometimes nobody else wanted to say yes to. But I've learned a lot from it, and being a little bit more open-minded about where I might wind up has served me. I haven't been perfect at that. I complain a lot to myself about where I am and things I don't want to do, right? But I think having that flexible view of what personal success looks like can really help to serve one. I think a big part of being successful within that is I would tell myself to focus a little bit more on self-awareness. I was not easy to manage earlier in life. And so anybody who has managed me, I'm sorry. When you lead, you see all of the things that you probably could have done differently. And so I think if I would have focused more on self-awareness, my journey would have probably not been so painful either. Liz Wiseman has this great book called Multipliers, and they talk about this idea of like becoming an accidental derailer. And there's all these terrible traits that we can exhibit, one or many of them, and actually keep like the cards on my desk to remind myself if I'm being that person. And I have a bias for perfectionism. In my mind, I see that as excellence, and actually it probably throttles me and probably also stresses out people around me. So I work really, really hard to manage those things. And then I think probably the last thing, and I say this all the time to early career people that I talk to, is invest as early and as aggressively as possible in your retirement plan. Because that is the ultimate career flexibility, is to have a secure retirement and have the flexibility to do the things that you love and to balance that with the things that you have to do.
Yes. I mean, ding, ding, ding. So many great things there. So much to unpack, because also I too just raised my hand in roles where I didn't know what in the world I was raising my hand for, but figured it out, which got us at least to where we are today. And I love that, you showed your cards, because those are things that you don't see when you're on a call with someone, or now, when you're working fully remote, that it's a constant reminder. And I too, at times recently, I guess it's being called out a little bit more that like I am also very uptight. And it's like, so I'm trying to like relax a little bit. So that perfectionist side can also kind of hinder you in a way, right? I think that's what you were alluding to. And now I've had to kind of like tell myself like progress over perfection all the time, just to kind of like get something done. But there's different layers, right? Different layers and different aspects depending on what it is, right?
I think so. I think that all of those things are double-edged swords generally, right? So like your perfectionism is what carries you forward. Your ability to ideate big things on the sort of like detractor side is like you put out so many things that you confuse priorities and you disrupt focus. All of those things are sort of two-sided, and it's sort of figuring out in the moment, what does that balance look like? I love to sort of show all of the tools that I have. I mean, I have in front of me a list of all the things I have to remember to do every day that are like approving invoices, like making sure I'm paying attention to birthdays, all of those things. And then I have all of these things. Be hard on the problem, soft on the person. Can anyone voice a different opinion? Use GPT. Pressure is a privilege. Never say never. Never say always. And then I have the Eisenhower matrix, like urgent and important, and I have all of these things because it is hard to stay present and focus on the practice of leadership sometimes when we're in the mechanics of it. And I think by speaking about those things as a leaders, especially to leaders who are developing, they realize that it takes a lot of work. You're not always going to get it right. And I think that being focused on being perfect and not taking risks because you want to be perfect will actually rob you of the learning, because we really learn from mistakes. The purposes of these things is to help people learn from each other's mistakes. I always tell this story, like if a dog eats something and it's bad and it spits it out, generally another dog will not go pick that thing up. Yeah. But as humans, if I taste something and it's terrible, I will say, Tiana, this is terrible. Taste this. Yeah. It is a terrible feature of like how we are built. If we could just learn, that that's terrible and don't do that, it would accelerate so much learning for us. So I love talking about the things that have not gone well, because if it saves one person from having to step on the same nails that I did, like, great.
Absolutely. I feel like now we can talk about this specific question for another hour, because I did hear someone say, I forgot who it was on a podcast, but they said everything was a lesson, right? They've never had a bad trial in their life, even though naturally they have, right? It's just one of those things where everything was an actual lesson. And so it's similar to exactly what you were saying, is that we're learning in everything. We can get through everything if you focus on what this is trying to teach you versus, okay, this is like ruining my life. I'm so, depressed. I always try to tell people, don't be in a pity party for too long, of course we need to sit in it a little bit, but, then we got to take it for what it is and move forward. So
I have an hour class on my desk that it's 5 minutes. And that's how long I can feel sorry for myself. Very helpful. Very helpful. Yeah.
That is true. I actually am going to go get one of those. Now that you think about it, it's like, okay, let's breathe really quick through it and then keep it moving. So great things, you guys. Thank you so much, Craig, for being on. This has ended up being even more inspirational than what I had imagined. Very great insight from Craig. Please reach out to him, especially if you need some support on the risk side. I mean, I can probably say lots of companies that I'm also working with now from the consulting space don't necessarily, I think after COVID, everyone kind of just moved on. And now we feel like we've gotten through COVID, so we can get through anything, which there's a layer of that is true. But also we still need to make sure we have the proper plans in place. So if you need any insider support from Craig, send him a note. He will be attached to this post. And Craig, thank you so much. I mean, the leadership talk is really important. We're in another set of unprecedented times. And I think it's really important that we get our best leaders in place. So thank you for being here today.
It's been fun. Thank you.
All righty. And I will see everyone else in another few weeks. Thank you. Bye.